Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to another video. Here we're going to take a look at the new moon in Aries, and we're also going to talk about how that highlights a very important aspect in the early part of April, which is Mars conjunct Saturn. So a couple of technical details to share with you as we're getting started. The new moon in Aries is happening at 11 degrees Aries, and it is happening on Friday, April 1st in most major time zones. The Mars conjunct Saturn aspect is happening on Monday, the 4th of April, if you're in the US and Canada. If you're in Western Europe, the UK, and parts of Australia, or all of Australia, I should say, that Mars conjunct Saturn aspect is happening on Tuesday, the 5th of April. So let's take a little look to start with at the chart for this new moon in Aries. And we'll talk a little bit about why it's important and what we can expect from this new moon. So here's the chart of the new moon. I'm using a chart for the nearest major city to me, which is Toronto in Canada. You can, of course, reset this birth chart to the nearest major city or town for you. So in the Toronto location, we've got this new moon happening in Aries. So you kind of want to ignore the houses, because unless we're talking about how this new moon might affect a particular geographical area, we're just going to focus on the planetary alignments in the chart. So there's the new moon with the sun and moon conjunct at 11 degrees Aries. So keeping in mind that historically, and even in many more traditionally oriented cultures today, the time of the sun in Aries, late March to early April, is a time of new beginnings. It is a time of celebrating New Year festivals and rituals as well. So the time that we have the sun moving through the zodiac sign of Aries in the northern hemisphere correlates with spring, and there is often this sense of freshness and newness. And when we factor in that a new moon is a monthly event that is about new beginnings and fresh starts, when we kind of layer in, well, it's a new moon in the sign of Aries, which is a sign of beginnings, we do get this very strong signature about fresh starts and new beginnings for the new moon in Aries. So in general, like most new moons, this is a time to begin afresh and to think about what you want for the next 4 weeks, except that because this is the new moon in Aries, it has a little more significance. It's part of, if you like, the astrological New Year celebration. And I always think the new moon in Aries is really significant for setting our tone and our intentions, not just for the next 4 weeks, but actually for the next 12 months as well. So you might think about what particular challenge you want to set for yourself, or if you want to kind of strike out in a new direction. Independence and autonomy are often really important when we're dealing with the new moon in Aries or other big Aries signatures. So this might be a time of coming back to what's right for you. We're certainly going to see that theme of independence, doing what's right for me, regardless of whether that, what that means for others. We're going to see that playing out collectively as well. So countries or organization or institutions kind of doing what's right for them. And we might see a little bit of that breakaway, where alliances might separate or come apart as people start to work on, what's right for them, or this organization's doing what's right for them, which means they're no longer collaborating or in partnership with this other group or organization. And keep in mind those Aries themes of going it alone, because we're going to see more of that in the weeks and months ahead when Jupiter comes into Aries, but more on that in another month or two. So this new moon in Aries, definitely time to think about a fresh start, particularly about a new challenge around the topics of the Aries house in your personal birth chart. The sun in Aries, it's an exalted planet. And so in general, the 4 weeks of the sun in Aries is a great time to make an improvement about the topics of the Aries part of your personal birth chart. And this new moon is a great time to put that new plan into action. when we're looking at a new or a full moon chart, one of the things astrologers like to do, and I like to do, is to take a look at the ruling planet of that new or full moon and to see what's going on with that planet and how that gives us some more information about this particular lunation. So if this new moon is happening in Aries, which is where it is, the ruler is going to be Mars. And at the time of this new moon, Mars is over in Aquarius, getting very close to the planet Saturn. So that Mars-Saturn conjunction, which doesn't come into its full strength until April 4th, is certainly at play and kind of amplified by this particular new moon or lunation. So there's a few things that I want to say about that. But just before I do, if you enjoy this kind of video content, if you like hearing about astrology in this multimedia format, I'd invite you to check out my monthly astrology membership. It is where I share astrological info. I talk about all the aspects that are happening every day and every week. So you get access to all the info you need to help you time your life according to astrology. I'll pop the link for that below. And if you would like to find out more, if you'd like to join the membership, you can do so via that link in the comment section below. So this Mars conjunct Saturn aspect, I want to say a few things about it. First of all, the Mars-Saturn in Aquarius combination, that's been going on since March 6th. As soon as Mars came into Aquarius, we started to get this kind of double malefic or double pressure kind of energy of having Mars and Saturn in the same sign. So Mars is in Aquarius from March 6th through to April 14. So that whole period is a little bit more fraught with pressure, with frustration, with challenge, and even with that idea of dealing with difficulties or having to navigate a mix of solvable or unsolvable problems. Mars would be associated with more solvable problems or manageable problems, and Saturn can sometimes be associated with unsolvable or really hard to manage type problems. So when we have Mars and Saturn together, we do get this sort of extra difficulty or this sort of extra pressure coming through. Some of us are going to see this really personally about the topics of the Aquarius part of our birth chart. Some of you might be seeing it to do with the topics of Mars in your birth chart, because in this particular combination, Mars is struggling or suffering a little bit more than Saturn. And so think about the topics of the Aries and Scorpio houses in your birth chart and see how they might have been a little bit more difficult, or you haven't been taking care of those areas of your life as well as you normally might in that time frame that Mars has been co-present with Saturn in Aquarius. Just before I get into some of those more specifics about Mars Saturn now, I want to make the point that it's very typical or very common that we get about 2 conjunctions of Mars to Saturn as Saturn moves through the different zodiac signs. So this is the second Mars-Saturn in Aquarius combination. The first one was March and April of 2020. And if you look back to when Saturn was in Aquarius, you'll see there were 2 different conjunctions of Mars and Saturn in Capricorn, one early in that cycle and then one later in that cycle. So this is a known pattern to have Mars join with Saturn a couple of times, or at least that's how it's going with where Saturn is in his cycle right now. But it is important to keep in mind that it is this particular Mars-Saturn conjunction in early April 2022 is a transition point and an end point for challenges or issues or collective matters that really emerged in that March, April of 2020 time. So I know you can all put your heads together as to what that is linking to. So what are we sort of thinking about, or what am I thinking about Mars Saturn now in early April? And how that speaks into the new moon. So a Mars-Saturn conjunction is about restraint. It's about dealing with restrictions and limitations. It's about managing frustration from things that are denied or delayed. So denied is something that's like, nope, that's not going to happen. And delayed is that's not happening now. So we've got a mix of those things that are likely to emerge in the days around this Mars-Saturn conjunction. So things that you might have been looking forward to that you have to put off, things that you might have hoped for that are not going to happen. Now, this can be from a wide variety of things. It might be that you plan to take a trip with some friends and you realize you can't afford to, so you're just not going to be able to. It might be that your boss had promised you something at work and now circumstances have changed and they can't give you what they had said they would. So there's quite a mix of possible manifestations depending on our own individual charts. But that Mars-Saturn conjunction happening April 4th is definitely going to feel like not getting what we want or not getting what we want on the timeline that we had wanted. Why am I talking about that in regards to this new moon in Aries? Because I think this aspect of Mars conjunct Saturn is really tied to the new moon in Aries, so that some of those fresh starts or new beginnings we're looking for with the new moon in Aries, they may start and then fizzle out based on the fact that this new moon is ruled by Mars conjunct Saturn. One of the ways I think we can work with this constructively is to think about a fresh push or a fresh burst of motivation or energy to tap into that Aries new moon, but to direct that energy or that kind of push or that drive towards a longer term goal or project. That's what the Mars-Saturn conjunction is kind of saying here. We're not picking up something quickly and moving through it and then it's done. With this new moon ruled by Mars conjunct Saturn, we're having to think about longer timelines. We're having to manage our impulses and our kind of immediate urges in the present. We're having to contain or self-regulate so that we can make sure we're attending to matters that are important for the long term. And because Mars doesn't really have any of the dignity in this situation, Saturn is the one definitely with the upper hand here. Saturn kind of wins out in the end. So that idea of long-term plans, dealing with things that are necessary but not fun. This is like going to the doctor for your health checkup, even though you don't want to, but you know you should. This is like making that extra payment on a loan or putting a little bit of money into your retirement savings. Maybe you'd rather go out to dinner or buy a new piece of clothing, which is maybe the Mars, I want that thing now. But Saturn is saying, do the thing that is going to benefit you in the future. So one question I want to leave you with on this new moon ruled by Mars conjunct Saturn is to think about what could you do in this early part of April that would give a gift to your future self? Is there a debt you can pay off? Is there a difficult conversation you could have knowing that you'll feel better once it's done? Is there an investment you could make in your health or in a financial offering that you know is going to be better for you? I mean, an investment in our health is as simple as turning off Netflix, putting our phone down and going out for a walk around the block, for instance. So it might not seem life-changing in the moment, but it's like, how can I, make that deposit in the health bank or the friendship bank or the family bank so that in the future there is something that has more substance or more stability for me to draw on. So that's, I think, important to keep in mind. And that's a little bit about this new moon in Aries ruled by Mars conjunct Saturn. I wanted to also say that this new moon in Aries, the energy of that starting new things, but needing to think long term, or starting new things that you get into and then they kind of get delayed or pushed back because of that Saturn impact. We're going to be dealing with a lot of that energy for about 2 weeks. So the impact of a particular new moon or full moon tends to last for about 2 weeks from the new moon until the next full moon. So this new moon, April 1st, is running for about 2 weeks until we have that full moon in Libra, which has a totally different feel. It's ruled by Venus. Venus is very well placed. I'll be back more to talk with you about that full moon in Libra in a future video. We're also going to finish up that Mars in Aquarius cycle in this 2-week period. So on April 14th, Mars leaves Aquarius and moves into Pisces. And that definitely lifts the collective pressure, turns down the astrological heat, because Mars is going to be more malleable, perhaps a little bit more easily distracted in Pisces, but Mars in Pisces will be giving its allegiance, if you like, to Jupiter in Pisces and stepping away from that Saturn in Aquarius cycle or emphasis. So we are kind of deeply in what are we working with personally and collectively about Saturn in Aquarius? What are some of the changes that you need to make in your individual life that have long-term benefits that kind of speak to how are you navigating Saturn in Aquarius? Where in your life is that cycle asking you to restructure, to consolidate, to get back to basics? And this Mars with Saturn, or Mars conjunct Saturn aspect, is sort of really pushing you to get going or to take action about the longer reshaping of your life that Saturn in Aquarius is looking for. And we're going to see some of that play out collectively, where Mars is kind of really pushing Saturn in Aquarius to get done the things that Saturn in Aquarius is trying to get done at a collective level. So I wanted to try and keep this video a little on the shorter side. So I'm going to wrap up there. If you do enjoy astrology via video, I hope you'll check out my monthly astrology membership. If you've got any questions or comments about this video, please let me know in the comments sections below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit that little bell, and that way you'll get a notification every time I share a new video. All right, team, let me know all about how you're navigating this new moon in Aries and what you're experiencing as Mars gets close to that conjunction with Saturn. And I'll be back to share more with you again soon. Bye for now.